Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about ways that you can increase your metabolism, like actual ways, not the garbage that you hear on social media. So if you're ready, look up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Hello.
Hello. I like the actual ways.
Well, because you hear like, oh my, like I can't, like I love Dr. Julie. I like fangirl her. I sent her without disclosing the client's information, a protocol that I received.
Oh,
and
is
she
this
goes,
what we were talking about the other week where you're like, I mean, I've never heard any of this, but we'll do it.
Well, there's a lot of those people, unfortunately. So, you know, I don't think, anyway, it could be. So she goes, this is way too many supplements. I would never endorse this. But then she also said, I can't really make any recommendations because I don't know this person. So, but she just looked at the supplements themselves and she's like, this is not a thing. So, well, and the thing is like people are going to listen and maybe they have tried everything that we've talked about. So then we would go to other means. But I think for most people, we start here and see where we're going. So stick around for that part of it. But I have to tell you about why my metabolism is slow today.
Oh, okay. Just today.
So just today. So that's not really how it works, guys, but that was a transition. So boom. Hey, maybe that's why we got a 4-star review, because our transition sucked.
Now.
Anyway,
listen long enough.
Well, they probably don't hear us talking crap about ourselves of the and the mic hits and the things.
Corner. We forgot about that.
We get it. So anyway, I'm in a beautiful deep sleep. Got my mask on my face, and I slowly crawl out of my deep sleep. I hear people yelling. Now, remember, guys, I'm at my in-laws' house in the middle of nowhere, Pittsburgh. Like they call it a suburb, but you'll see videos of it on my Instagram this week. It's beautiful. It's I swear, I tell my mother-in-law every morning when I walk out to let the dogs out, I think that a bird is going to fly on my finger and sing me a song. Like it's beautiful, but it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, interesting. Someone having a party is what I'm thinking on a Sunday. So
in the morning, like at what time in the morning?
Like midnight.
Oh, okay. So midnight in the morning. Okay.
So your girl's been asleep for at least 3 hours. I am in full deep sleep, just loving life. I mean, like I'm prying my eyes open and I'm listening, and these people are arguing, and it's like, you stole my car. And then the other person's like, fuck you, bitch. And then someone starts screaming, someone help. And then Mark wakes up.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what is happening? So he goes out and he's listening and I'm listening. So then he's like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but there is a car accident and I don't think they know the person or they know the person or something. So I'm going to go out there. So I'm like, well, then I'm going to go out there. So we cross. So where my in-laws live, they really have a huge land. So we cross over to finally get to the street. And you hear this lady that her daughter stole her car. And as we're out there walking the land, like the long, like grassy area that we walk
frontiering.
Yes. I have no shoes on too, by the way. The lady's screaming, someone help again, because the dog's like beating her up. Yeah. So then we get out there. She's finally calling the cops. She's, my 16-year-old daughter stole my car and then she assaulted me. So then the daughter's walking towards us and then she goes, and she's on probation. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
And in my brain, I'm like,
out.
Well, no, I'm like, I don't have time for this right now. Like, doing therapy. What is my role as a citizen in this? And once I heard she's on probation, I'm like, 16-year-old on probation, I'm guessing it's not something I want to deal with right now. So I turn around and you hear the girl go, are you guys just going to turn around? And I kind of like throw my arms up and she's like, F you, you ugly bitch. And I'm like, good one, girl. It's midnight. You're 50 feet away from me. But then I couldn't go back to sleep. The cops
Well,
came
yeah.
and like they weren't screaming anymore. Like basically after I could hear the mom like talking to the cops and it was just a whole thing. And I'm like, how in my brain, I'm like, how did the mom find that? How did she find her? Does she put a tracker on the car? Does she have like OnStar and it stopped the car? Like, how did this mom find the daughter in the car that she stole? Is what I want to know.
What was there 2 cars there or just 1 car there?
I could only see one, so I'm
Okay.
guessing she like drove there and found
Yeah,
her.
because I was gonna
But
say, well, then how did she even get there too? Like, if there's only 1 car, there's so many
the
questions.
yeah, and
And
then she was screaming, "Please help!" It was very traumatic.
well,
And I'm like,
yeah.
do I bring my knife? Have I told you the knife story?
No.
Why I own my oh.
No.
Okay, so here's a gym story. Maybe we should save this for gym etiquette.
We'll save it for gym etiquette.
Okay, we're gonna say the gym story, but I have a knife that
Nice.
I was gifted by a stranger. You guys have to wait till next for that episode to hear the story. But I didn't have it on me. And then in my brain, I secretly want to be that person who's like an FBI agent that goes out there and like solves. It's like when I went on the plane and I wanted to be the person. I want to be the hero.
See, and y'all were giving me shit for looking in my neighbor's yard, and here you are carrying a knife, wanting to be an FBI agent.
I was not carrying a knife with me then, but I want to be the hero. I want to be like, listen, I'm an FBI agent. Y'all need to calm down. Or on the plane when they had the medical emergency.
Yeah.
Yes, I can help. I can't. Unless you have an anxiety attack, I can't. So,
Like,
anyway, so my metabolism is slow because I don't know how much sleep I got. My Aura ring's coming. My Aura
they
ring
shipped you a
took
new
a
one?
little. Yeah,
Good.
and then Adrian was staying at my house this weekend, so she shipped it to me. Yay!
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice of
Dustin
her.
left. He's on his way to Tulsa
Ooh,
with his actual FBI agent. So
yeah. With the
you
real
know,
one of the group.
the real one. Yeah. How was your weekend? You had some good lifts.
I did have some good lifts. I wish, well, I would technically go heavier, but I decided not to because I'm really working on hugging my baby, which is
Mm-hmm.
a
I
really
was
odd.
watching.
Yes, I was trying very hard and I sent the videos to my pelvic PT and she said they looked great. And I was like, oh, thank
Good.
goodness. I know. So that was, yeah, I did a 5x1 deadlift at 215, which is not my 1 rep max, but I was like, I don't really need to be like going to 230, 240, 250. Because I wanted to make sure I was hugging my baby. And if you don't know what hugging your baby is, it's essentially engaging your like lower abdominals. So that way you're not putting a lot of downward pressure on your stomach and like your pelvic floor or helping like not cone or dome when you're working out. So it's a breathing technique. And it's
I
hard.
remember watching Tia Claire when she was training. She was doming.
Yeah.
Was doming.
Yeah, you know what's crazy about that is because there's a couple CrossFit people I follow and then people who are into CrossFit who repost CrossFit. And they'll like there's a big push right now for like women in CrossFit and postpartum and like moms doing CrossFit, which I'm totally for. But they'll like show these athletes that are back for like after 6-12 weeks, like competing and stuff. And I'm just like, I think that's really wonderful, but I really hope people are taking away like that's not normal. And like I would not want any client of mine to be competing in a CrossFit tournament 6 to 12 weeks after having a baby.
Yeah.
So
I'm just laughing because I looked at your notes for next story. Sorry. I was putting my notes in the comments. So that's funny.
Yeah. But other than that, like lifted I'm much into like a wake up, eat, workout, nap, pool, repeat kind of vibe. But we celebrated Father's Day on Friday because my dad had to make a swift trip back out to the East Coast to help some family with a situation. I know. So so we ended up selling Father's Day Friday, and then that's been it. Like Michael did a lot around the house. I did nothing around the house.
Sweet.
I know. We're like kind of like we should probably start like working on getting some baby stuff, but I'm also like, ugh, it's fine. Oh, we also figured out, guess for gender because I know.
Oh, wait,
No.
how did we do this? Oh,
Well, hang on. Because we were gonna do it in Colorado, like when we go for 4th of July.
yes.
But I threw Michael for a big loop because we're gonna have 2 kids, allegedly. Um,
And like all together, like right now?
no, 1 kid is cooking,
Okay.
and then we will
I was
have a
like, oh, we're having twins too. Got it.
we will have a second kid later. If it's up to me, I just want 1 because 1 is great. But he has put a firm no.
As a
So,
therapist, you want to.
okay, well, fine too.
Yeah.
So I threw him for a loop because I was like, hey, if we're gonna do a gender reveal kind of thing in Colorado, like you need to tell me because I'll like figure out the logistics of it because we'll get like a bakery and do all that shit.
Should get a firework.
Oh, that would be a good idea too. Well,
Yeah.
now, because I said, okay, but if we do the gender reveal or reveal the gender of this first one, on the second one, we do not reveal the gender. Like I want a surprise because on this one, I don't want to know, but he does. So I'm like, okay. And so now he is in total disarray of what we're going to do because he was not expecting to not get to know for both. So now we might not know for this one.
Oh,
I know. So I was like, okay, then we need to tell people that we're not going to find out until it's born. That way nobody that way we don't, because rightfully so, people keep asking.
my sister did that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I would just like to me, like so much of my life has been so structured and like I know the outcome for most things or I know how to predict it or like I try and predict it, that this is one thing that I'm like, it'd kind of be nice just to find out. So
what if Michael, it's a girl and you're like, you just push that baby out and he's like, that's nice.
put it back.
It is kind of, I mean, no matter what, like, but after you pushing it out of your vagina and then him being like, it's a girl.
Great.
Just kidding. I don't know. Maybe he does want a girl. I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know. He because I asked him, I was like, well, what if it's a girl? He's like, then it's a girl. And I was like, well, what if it's a boy? He's like, then it's a boy. And I'm like, okay, well.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think we're going to reveal the gender as of now.
Wow. That's exciting. So my sister just did like safari theme and it was bright colors. So like basically your not compound, primary colors. So. Yeah. Compound movement colors. So that's exciting. Well, hormones, babies, all things that impact your metabolism. So let's talk about that. So Amanda and I, before we started this, just wanted to decide, like, how do we say that? Because there's this, there's boost your metabolism, fix. That's the one.
Oh, that's a good one. We need it. Yeah. How to fix your metabolism. That's what we need.
Fix your, well, no, I think that's kind of silly on people. It's not broken.
Well, and like, how did it break?
It's not broken. It's still It's actually working really, it's not working. It's working in the way it's supposed to work by adapting to what you're doing. Yes. So it's not broken. How do we say? What would be a good example?
How do they determine it's not working too? Like, because I guess it's like their fat loss or their weight loss. It's weight loss. It's never fat loss has stalled too. Right. So like that's the only reason to tell that your metabolism is broken. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, and they say it's broken, but it's like, no, the way that your car's still running, but you're not giving it like the repair and oil change and you think about your 5,000 mile review or not review, but maintenance, your 10,000, you're not doing that for it. So therefore your little car isn't broken. It's still working, but it's not running well. It's not running efficiently. So let's first define what metabolism is. So it's a chemical process, right, that occurs in living organisms in order to maintain life. Okay. So your metabolism is the process of taking food and drink and converting it to energy for the body to then use. Then we have energy balance, right, which we'll talk about here in a second, which is this concept of how much you're taking in, how much energy you take in versus how much energy you exert or you burn in a day, right? And so metabolism it's very, very important in regards to your health. And as we're seeing in our generation, a lot of people have metabolic health issues.
Mhm.
There are a variety of things from even autoimmune struggles to obesity, of course, and many other things that, a metabolism that is not maintained, like the car reference, not maintained well, their car will start to break down. It'll still be putting along, but it's not running on all cylinders or firing on all cylinders. And we want it to. So when we're talking about increasing your metabolism, what we're talking about is learning the maintenance of your body that over time, especially in midlife, right? 30s, 40s, well, midlife is 40 to 60, but even in your 30s, specifically in your 30s, like starting this now, so that in those later years, you can prevent a lot of these secondary metabolic health issues in the future. So I thought we'd talk about that. Why don't you give them a better understanding of energy balance? I think that would be important. I didn't put it in the notes, but I think that's something we should talk about.
Are you meaning like as far as energy in and energy out? Or are you meaning like the TDEE stuff?
Well,
Or
the
both?
energy in, so let's talk about when we have like what maintenance is. So if we are consuming the same amount of calories that we burn versus the same amount of calories that we eat,
Right.
you know, our body is basically maintaining, right? So that's a balanced energy input, right?
Mhm. So then when we're
And
talking
go ahead.
about if we're over consuming calories as compared to our body's needed energy levels, because I don't want to
Mhm.
say like calories burned because then people will look at their
Oh,
watch,
good,
right? Like
good
I want to
call.
be very careful in how we phrase this because they'll look at their watch and be like, okay, so I've burned 2000, well, no, we'll say 1000 calories today. So I need to eat 900 calories today. That way I'm in a deficit.
Right.
So we're
That's
talking
not
about
how it
energy.
works.
Yeah, not at all. And so when we eat proportional to our energy output, that's what Christina said is maintenance. If we're over consuming energy, so over consuming food proportional to our activity, and activity is not just exercise, activity is walking to and from your car, getting in and out of bed, like and just existing in
Resting.
general. And
Mhm.
we've talked about that before of like neat, eat, and like the thermic effect of food as it takes to digest, and then just what your body needs to live. If we're eating more than those percentages combined, then you're in a surplus. And that is
Mhm.
typically associated with weight gain. Okay.
Mhm.
Then, excuse me, if we are eating less than what our body needs, that's typically associated with weight loss. But it can be weight loss is a generic term. Is it fat loss? Is it muscle loss? And there's different ways to help accommodate both of those. And ideally, you don't want to lose muscle, right? So this is what we're
Mhm.
going to talk about, like how to repair your metabolism is considering that in mind. But
Mhm.
also, if we're talking about most people actually want fat loss. They would like muscle to stay the same, fat loss. Well, when we go into a even less energy input than energy output, you're going to lose fat and muscle. So how do we
Mhm.
replicate
Mhm.
or remediate that? And so when we're looking at calories in versus calories out, yes, you can just equate it to that, but there's so much more because we'll say, for example, a 1500 calorie diet, and I say diet as in
Mhm.
like nutrition consumption, not like keto or like Weight Watchers or something like that. But when we're talking about a 1500 calorie diet coming from like McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King, highly processed foods, it's going to be look much different than a 1500 calorie deficit or diet from
Mhm.
Whole Foods, right?
Mhm.
So,
Right.
and even thinking of your calories in versus calories out, same calories in, but your output energy wise can be different as well, and aesthetically can be different as well. So,
Mhm.
something to touch on there for metabolism repair, and something that I think is one of the easiest things to swap.
Right. Well, and increasing metabolism,
Yeah.
right? Because uh, you know, one thing you said that made me think about a recent study. I don't remember if I watched it or I read it specifically, was on how off we are in guessing how much food we're
Oh,
intaking versus guessing how much food we are exerting energy. Sorry,
uh-huh.
we're exerting, and it's up to like 40% inaccuracy in regards to what you think you're eating, and you're miscalculating, you're underestimating what you eat and the
Yeah.
overestimate how much they burn in a day. And I think that the latter is very much, the Apple Watch, the Aura Ring, because
Whoop.
I mean, how many times have people said, well, I just look at my watch and then I cut it from there,
All the time.
and if they did this high intensity workout that day, they thought that they, burned 2,500 calories. So then they're eating 2,000 when 2,000 is probably their maintenance, right?
Right.
Because exercise, again, as we've said before, only equates to about 5 to 10% of our energy burned in a day.
Mhm.
Whereas your body at rest, your basal metabolic rate, your resting metabolism burns the most amount of energy in a day, and that's without movement, right? So we overestimate our movement, we underestimate our calories, and this is why we have over 65% of the American population is overweight or obese, and I think it's higher than that is overweight. So
Yes.
let's talk about what you can do, specifically women, because you're going to hear a bunch of junk about how to repair your metabolism, boost your metabolism.
You know what I just thought of? Reset. They always talk about resetting.
Oh, reset.
What? Like, do
That's
I
a
push
good
my
one.
belly button and it resets?
Yeah. I'm like,
Okay.
you're too young for this, but there was a show called Small Wonders, and she was a robot.
I've never heard
So,
of that.
and you can just and then you could push her and she would shut down. Small Wonders, who remembers? Shout out in the comments, because y'all are my age. Her name was Vicky. She wore a little red dress. She talked like this. Anyway, are you looking it up?
Yeah, it's okay.
Vicky, Small Wonders, baby.
So
I
we have to
believe she
try
did
it.
something too. Oh, please comment. What was the one where she stopped time and put her fingers together? Psh. That was another show. Did you watch that show?
I don't know.
It was like, psh, and she'd stop time and everyone would freeze but her. And then if she touched you, you would unfreeze.
Oh, no, I don't know that one.
Different show. Anywho, so let's talk about one of the main things you can do. And I will say the recent Mind Pump podcast and Dr. Mark Hyman podcast with Dr. Tina, what is her name? Moore. Dr. Tina Moore is a really great podcast on not only GLP-1, but then also kind of the metabolic stuff happening in the background and how GLP-1s affect that. It's very, very interesting. So if you guys want to listen to that, she's got her own podcast too. She is now utilizing microdosing with GLP-1s for metabolic dysfunction, microdosing it though. It's very interesting. And one of the main things, because, when I listen to some of these podcasts who push GLP-1s, I'm still in this, I know that this is happening and I need to adapt to it. And I need to think about how, as a business owner, how we can adapt as a company. And obviously we have our niche of mindset. And she talks about you have this moment on these GLP-1s where you can literally recreate your habits because of the way that they affect your brain. And the first thing she suggests, obviously, what we're going to talk about, which is strength training. But I also thought, that's actually an opportunity for us too, of you're on this for X amount of time. You may not be on it forever, but it gives you an opportunity to recreate your habits. And there's some sort of
neuroplasticity.
Thank you. That can happen in that moment because of the way that it also affects inflammation in your brain. So that should be a conversation we have another time for sure. But muscle strength, you guys heard Dr. Julie say, do it and do it now. Increasing muscle mass is one of the best ways to keep your metabolism, your resting metabolism high. Sarcopenia is the process of losing muscle. And it is one of the deadliest things that can happen because when we break a hip, we break a bone, specifically hips, we can be in a hospital. We most likely as women, that can cause us to die, right? So increasing muscle is the one way, one of the best ways to not only help your metabolic health, but also your health in general.
Mhm.
And I know we talk about it all the time, and we can talk about it from an aesthetics point of view. We can talk about it from a strength point of view. But in all reality, your muscle tissue is so metabolically charged that it requires more energy. And what is energy? Right? Energy comes from food. And how do we create energy? Metabolism. So if I need more energy to maintain muscle, then I can eat more food, right? I'm burning more also at rest
Mhm.
because this metabolically charged tissue. And that is oftentimes why you see your friend who maybe strength trains 3 to 4 times a week, manages her nutrition and other things we're going to talk about, why she can go and have that glass of wine or go on vacation and not see much difference. But if you do it, because maybe you're at a higher body fat percentage, it, as you say, sticks to you, where it doesn't stick to her because she is higher muscle. You're smiling.
Oh,
Thoughts?
I'm just like thinking of like how it like almost like I would throw food at you and it would stick to you. I mean, until you came back
Especially
to me.
on your like hips and your
Yeah,
belly.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm just throwing like sandwiches and like ice cream and cake at you and it's sticking to you. And so like, it's so funny that we say that because I think like women, they do say that, it just sticks to me. And then
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they come back from vacation and overtrain to make up for it. And almost thinking like that overtrain is gonna be like it all of a sudden that like ice cream is just gonna fall off on the floor of the gym and be like, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's not sticking there anymore. So I was just like
Seriously.
thinking of that.
Seriously.
No,
Yeah.
but one thing I do want to know is so you're talking about metabolically charged, and for another term for that is the energy needed to sustain. So
Mm-hmm.
because I get what you're saying, but just to put it in like another reference cue is the energy needed to keep muscle and preserve muscle and heal muscle and recover muscle is needed from food and nutrition. And the more
Mm-hmm.
muscle you have, the more food and nutrition you can utilize to help maintain and sustain and rebuild and repair and even create new muscle too. So
Absolutely.
that was another thing that I was thinking while you were talking is a plot twist on that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, we talk about like a lot of times focusing on the aesthetics of muscle and the benefit of it for when women are looking for the certain look and they're not realizing like, oh, it's literally coming from you not having enough muscle. But what we're talking about here with the metabolism is your health, your internal health is somewhat, not completely, but somewhat determined by your amount of muscle that you have. So even
Mm-hmm.
putting it this way, a lot of the topic now is like insulin resistance. I'm so insulin resistant. And it's like, well, your muscle needs insulin. Like it
Mm-hmm.
needs insulin is essentially an energy unit of like sugar, right? And a long story short, and that's not completely
Mm-hmm.
science accurate, but for the audience here, without getting into that. And so thinking of like, okay, well, if you're insulin resistant, how do we help support that other than like taking pharmaceuticals if we need them? We can
Right.
build muscle. We can send that
Mm-hmm.
insulin somewhere to help build.
Somewhere.
Yeah. And so I think
Absolutely.
thinking of like the internal, and you talked about falls, like it's if you fall, I think it is 80%. If you fall and break your hip, you're more likely to die within like 2 or 3 years or something like that
Mm-hmm.
if you're older.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of like the women who have aged well, they've probably got some muscle on them too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely. I interrupt this episode to bring to you our June discount on our one-to-one coaching program. Y'all do not want to miss this. If you are someone who needs accountability, support, someone to hold your hand through this really tough work of rewiring your mind to let go of yo-yo dieting, emotional eating, binge eating, excessive exercise, this is a program for you. The Mindset Method one-to-one coaching, again, is our most intimate program. You get a one-to-one call with your coach every single week. Every week, y'all. This allows you to process, understand the underlying and root causes to the behaviors that you need to rid yourself in an effort to see the results you desire. On top of that, you get direct access to your coach through our messenger and our app any time of the day or week, your coach being there to help you on the other side. You get customized nutrition protocols as well as well-phased and well-programmed exercise protocols. And these will change over the period of the 4 months that you're with your coach. On top of that, you get resources, self-care resources, resources to help you with your nutrition, access to our amazing community of women, and so much more. For the month of June, using the code June Mindset, you are going to get $250 off our Mindset Method one-to-one coaching program. You will not want to miss this. Seats are limited as we only have so many clients that we are open to taking. If you are interested, you will want to sign up for a clarity call, the link being below. And in this clarity call, we're both interviewing each other. This program takes a lot of work. You need to be ready, willing, and able to do this work. And so myself and Coach Amanda will decide if you are ready and if you are a good candidate for our program, as well as we hope you decide if we're a good candidate for your coach. And so if you are interested in that, please click the link below. This is only going to be offered to our podcast listeners, so take advantage of it. Other than that, let's get back to the show. Yeah, it's, again, this is such a simple thing that has so many benefits that you guys who've listened from day one have heard. This one being one of the best because, again, metabolic decline, metabolic, issues are rampant right now. There's so much crap in our food. We're on such high chronic stress in general. There are so many things that can affect our metabolism. And that's not to say, oh, I strength train, so I'm going to be better, but it's going to help you, get ahead, right? Get ahead of it. And it's so easy. Now let's talk about one thing though. I want to make sure our listeners know is we're also not overdoing it. Because remember, guys, energy balance is also that output, right? So you can very nicely, increase your resting metabolism by strength training 2 to 3 days a week, creating or following a program that we talked about just a couple episodes. No, we haven't even launched it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, we will have a program example that you can follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if 2 to 3 days a week, and that may be for the rest of your life, right? 2 to 3 days a week, I can do this thing that is so beneficial to my body and not just aesthetics. And I'm saying that over again because I think oftentimes when we label something for aesthetics, it can give people such a negative, like it feels so negative to them. It feels like diet culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I can say that workout you're doing is helping your body, your metabolism and your body metabolically, it gives it a totally different definition. It may change your motivation to do it, right? And, again, 2 to 3 days a week, full body strength training is where I would start. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, we want to talk about, yes, I'm strength training, but are we eating enough too? Because that's another, like a comment that I'll get from my metabolism is just so slow. And I'm like, well, of course it is. And I explain to them it's slow. Yeah. And so I'm like, of course it is.
Metabolism's like barbecues. Slow and low.
So, and I'm thinking like, well, yes, of course, because it doesn't know when it's going to be fed again. It doesn't know if it's going to be enough food. And then you're expecting it to strength train or do your HIIT workout or your cardio workout, plus have a life, plus engage with your kids, plus engage with your husband or go out with your friends if you don't have any of those things. So yeah, it's going to slow down because it's got to say, okay, we've got to preserve this energy over these hours that I'm not going to get replenished. And so when we're talking about even eating enough getting enough to build muscle, we have to make sure that we're eating enough. So even this too it's going to be very hard for you to build your muscle when you're not eating enough. So, right. And then in turn, it's even going to be hard for your metabolism to repair, rebuild, or speed up if I'm not eating enough, if I'm not giving it a consistent signal. So we need to stop always being in a diet and I've had clients say, well, I technically wasn't, now that I think about it, I really wasn't in a diet at that time. And I'm like, but you mentally were there. So we need to stop
Mhm.
always mentally being in a diet and or choosing to physically be in one as well. We need to see how much we can eat. So like we were talking about your calories in versus calories out of to stay at maintenance. See how much you can truly eat, see what strength training does. And those two things alone, without reducing calories or going over calories or doing like 5 days a week of workouts, are probably going to give you what you want internally and externally too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, again, as we talk about the thing that you're not doing, a lot of women listening to this are going to be like, wait, what? I'm going to eat more and move less, and
Mm.
that's going to get me what I want? No way. But way, because again, if I'm increasing, yes, way. When I'm increasing muscle mass, right? So let's just put this into perspective. I have been on a diet or in this kind of yo-yo, right? I do well, and then I'm bad on the weekends, and then I restrict myself because I was so bad, and then I'm good, so then now I'm gonna go be bad again, and that whole thing that women do over and over again, or they start those really restrictive diets. Like you were saying, the body is not consistently getting the nutrients that it needs. So, as you mentioned, it conserves energy because, there is that threshold of I need so many calories to just sustain life, right? And it's people call it starvation mode. That's not what it is. It's metabolic adaptation, and not even metabolic adaptation. Your body's just conserving energy, right? And it's saying, okay, well, she has not been feeding me, and I need to make sure my brain, my heart is
Mhm.
working, right? So there's so many things that it doesn't need that our bodies do that it's like, man, she doesn't need long hair. She doesn't need long nails, and it'll just slow down those processes, as we've talked about before, which all require energy. So now I've been doing this yo-yo, and my resting metabolism says, I don't know, 1500, right? Which would be terrible, but it's true for a lot of people. And they go on a diet and they think, oh, well, my watch is telling me I burn 2000 calories, or maybe they do. Maybe they do go to that is their, well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe their watch says that. So then they're like, well, 1500 is my calorie deficit, and you're not seeing weight loss at 1500. You may even see weight gain, right? And a lot of you will say that. You're like, well, I don't understand. I'm eating in a deficit now, like a true deficit, but I'm still not losing weight, right? We're missing the step. So let's take the person who takes the time, eats enough food to gain muscle, slowly brings that 1500 up to 16, 17, 18, 1900, 2000 calories, right? Which very much we've done it with clients. And maybe we get them even higher depending on how ballsy they are. Now, for that person, if they did want to go into a deficit, and obviously under our care it would be conservative, they're going to do it. They're going to see results because their body trusts them again, but they have to take that entire time to do it. And I posted this the other day. The long way is the quickest route.
Mhm.
This long process of building muscle, eating enough food, figuring out your maintenance, right, is a long way, but it's going to have less frustration. You're going to feel better in general. When you feel better, when you have more energy, you're going to move more. You're going to have better cognition to make decisions about your food and your health and your lifestyle. You are just ultimately going to be in a better place, which is just going to, exacerbate these good feelings instead of what you've been doing, which is just trying to eat that low calorie diet, not seeing results because you live in let's just call it a flabby or skinny, maybe not even skinny version of yourself because
Mhm.
you've just been in like yo-yo diet.
Yep. So another thing I want to talk about. So we were talking about eating more, doing a little bit less, focusing on strength training, but things that we can do throughout the day. So even like for the women who are like, I am just not interested in strength training at all, or I don't have 2 days a week, or I've only got 20 minutes once a week, whatever that looks like. That's one thing that I want to circle back to is be realistic too. But that doesn't mean we can't increase our opportunity for metabolism repair, as we're saying.
Stop using that word.
Well, increase your metabolism.
Yes, you keep saying it.
Okay, so increase your metabolism throughout the day by doing daily tasks that may just change your behaviors. Okay. And what we call these norms in our method program. And so what we mean by that is instead of taking the elevator up 2 flights of stairs, maybe take the stairs. And then maybe parking a little bit further in the parking lot from your work, from Target, wherever you're going. Maybe when you're in the grocery store, like you do up and down each aisle. It doesn't mean you have to buy everything on each aisle, but just getting some extra steps. Maybe if you're going to, like for me, I know if I'm going to be like on social media doing something, I try and get up and just like walk around my house and do it rather than sitting on my couch and doing it. And so thinking of little things like that throughout your day, it's called your NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis, aka NEAT, using that as a way to help support this change that you're trying to make internally. And so, I mean, even walking has a benefit, right?
Well, and we're talking about muscle, like maintaining muscle, right? Keeping it around. NEAT it doesn't have that catabolic effect, right? Because when you're just increasing your NEAT, we're not getting into the sympathetic nervous system like cardio, like intensive cardio would. So we're in our parasympathetic state. We are moving our body. We're increasing our output. So of course, this also ties back into eating enough, but we're able to maintain muscle and still work on cardio health or cardiovascular health at the same time. So that's all positives. Whereas cardio, yes, it needs to be used for your cardiovascular health. However, a lot of people think that the more cardio they do, the more metabolically sound they are. And quite frankly, that is not the truth, right? So NEAT is the way to go. That extra movement for sure. We talked about cardio and how, again, remember if we're not eating enough. So we talked about energy balance, not eating enough, the body adapts. If we're burning too many calories in like a workout, the body's also going to adapt. Right. So that long run, our body's, glycogen stores are depleted after 90 minutes. People who do like ultra marathons, their job is to make sure that they're eating something, or usually it's one of those, I don't know what they're called.
They're like a gel carb pack or something. Yeah.
To get that glycogen back in their body to utilize it for energy. And so think about it those two ways. If I'm not eating enough, my body is adapting its metabolism to the lack of energy in. And then when I'm doing these like really high intensity, or long endurance type of training programs, my body's doing the same thing to adapt to the energy out, right? So what else? I cut you off.
No, that was okay. No, I think that was a good point.
Well, and one thing I wanted to say about nutrition though was we didn't even touch on protein.
Oh, we didn't.
Yeah. So protein is a part of our a part of how we build muscle, right? So protein is essential. We do not, there are some amino acids we create and some that we do not, and we need to consume them. Most women do not consume enough protein in their diet. Now, there are so many different, fields or thoughts, camps around how much protein you should have. It really depends on your goals. There's a general health recommendation up to an athlete recommendation. And so for most women, I would say 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which is important, is the normal recommendation. I'd go higher if my person is looking to do something like gain more muscle, right? Or they're someone who is more advanced in their strength training or is athletic and training for something specific. Interestingly, I've heard recently people poo-poo protein because of certain metabolic issues and saying that the protein, that they should actually cut it down because of metabolic issues around like cortisol and things of that nature. I looked up the information, and even Dr. Cabral, his program that focuses on just general health, he says even like 10 to 20% of your diet should be protein, just from a general health perspective, which can be low. I mean, if you're 100 pounds, not a
Right.
lot, but it's all relative to um, the goal. And his goal is longevity, right? Where he goes into later on about people who are athletic and so on. So you're going to hear a lot of different, why I brought this up is there are so many different camps in the amount of protein. I think for you, like being able to understand what is my goal and deciding within those recommended ranges what feels good to you, what feels good in regards to digestion, right? A lot of people will get like gassy and stuff. And what feels good to you, if it is an aesthetics goal or a strength goal, like, are you seeing that progress? And if we're seeing that progress, great. That means we are on the right track. If we are not, then we can play around with the intake of protein.
I agree. Yeah. And like, it's interesting that study, well, and I wonder if it was marketed to you just because of like our social media curation, but I would say that most women I engage with are not eating enough.
No.
So to put that out there, like it is true that there are certain, we'll say conditions or disorders or whatever that can be impacted by too much protein. But I think that also doesn't give like that asterisk of, but most people are not eating enough protein. So unless you've been told otherwise that you have something, like I have a client who has a certain kidney condition and her doctor doesn't want her to go over 100 grams of protein per day. That's a diagnosed condition that she works with was it nephrologist? I think they are a kidney specialist on.
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
Yeah.
But again, like most clients in general are not eating enough. And I want to note, protein is not your peanut butter. Protein is not nuts. Protein is not just like your egg whites. Like it is your whole egg. It is your chicken. It is your meat. Those like the nuts.
Plant
What else?
proteins as well.
Yeah. Like the nuts and peanut butter, that's fats. And so I'll see like people will be like, oh, I eat high protein. Like I had a scoop of peanut butter the other day. I'm like, no.
That's
No.
fat.
Right.
Well, and I think it's important to just note that real quick. Like, look at where the majority of the calories are coming from.
Yes.
You'll figure out what it is, right? Yeah. So, when I'm looking at chicken breast, 26 grams of protein times 4 is 4?
Ooh,
and
I don't know. Math.
Yeah, that's 104. Look at me doing math, everyone. Yay. And I think it may have 1.5 grams of fat, right? Times 9. So that's 20. So the majority of the calories are coming from protein, whereas peanut butter, say it's 10 grams of fat. So it's 90 calories and 6 grams of protein. That's 24 calories. So it's a fat. So that's the easiest way for you guys out there to figure that out. What is this? Where is the majority of the calories come from? And the way I did the math, for a gram of protein or a gram of carbs, you times the total by 4. For a gram of fat, you times the total by 9. And that's how you decide. That's how you get your calories. So just want to put that out there. But yeah, I agree with you. And it doesn't, there are plenty of people, and I'm open to, even like the vegan and vegetarians who can, they have plant-based proteins and you've seen people gain muscle. Now, is it harder? Yes, it can definitely be harder, but is it possible? Sure. That is not our forte, or at least not mine.
No.
So that's not what we're going to talk about. But again, guys, 0.8 to 1.2 grams of kilograms of body weight per, 1.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Mm-hmm. As we get more athletic and have specific goals, that's going to increase. For me, I stick around 135 to probably 145. I should, some people say 1 gram of 1 gram of protein per body weight. Even for me, someone who can get a ton of protein in, I usually just fall in between 135 to 145, which absolutely is enough for me. I bet you, for you probably go over.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. And that's when we're talking about like athletic, going over that recommendation of the zero 0.8 to 1.2. Same with pregnancy. You want that like
Mm,
at 1.6 and beyond.
that's
Because
so
in
important.
pregnancy, you want to change high fat, high carb, or no, excuse me, high fat, high protein, low carb. So that's
Got it.
something too. Like if you're going into that phase and you don't know where your protein is at, now's a good time to start assessing and then
Mhm.
recalibrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that also will help with, I'm guessing, gestational diabetes. That's
Yes.
what we're
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. So the next thing, speaking of babies and not getting sleep, managing your sleep is going to be uber
Huge.
duper helpful. Now, if you're someone going through menopause, I understand this may be a challenge going through the menopause transition.
Mhm.
For all people, really getting a sleep routine down is going to be so helpful. Being able to go to bed at the same time, wake up relatively around the same time, have a kind of shutdown routine so that you're prepping your body for sleep. Our circadian rhythm does coincide with the sun rising and the sun setting. So for some people who do shift work, this can be difficult, right? I have a client who is an anesthesiologist. I mean, my poor girl has we've gone 4.5 on average to 6.5. And that's where we're at. Our sleep hygiene goal this week is to do a brain dump just because some like anxiety stuff has come up. But our training, a big part of it is her sleep hygiene because now she's still young, right? But you and I both know if she'd allow this to continue, when we don't get enough sleep, it is a hormonal disaster,
Yes.
right? I mean, our ghrelin goes up, which is our hunger hormone. Our leptin goes down, which is our fullness hormone. We have higher cravings for fast burning carbohydrates because we're tired. Your
Mhm.
body is so brilliant. It's like, oh, give me that one thing that gives me that quick, like,
Boost of
energy
energy.
boost.
Mhm.
Right. We are more irritable and we'll want to look for comfort. So then there's that secondary behavior because we may turn to comfort out of food, right? So then we may gain some weight around that. But metabolically, it's sleep is where we're kind of resetting and resting and repairing from the day before. And if we're not doing that, it can cause havoc on our hormones and our metabolic health.
Yeah. One thing I want to use your dial analogy here too
Mhm.
is because you'll hear I'll see questions on our Facebook group sometimes of, is it more beneficial to wake up early and lose the sleep and go and work
Mm.
out? Or should I do the sleep and not work out? And to me, my answer is like, you need to focus on the sleep routine and then the workout routine, because the
Yep.
workout routine we can break up throughout the day. Like it doesn't need to be at 4 a.m. if that's the only time you can do it. And
Hmm.
also, like, what is your routine going into that? So if we're not taking care of our sleep, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the gym or outside of the gym, like as far as like strengthening, getting strength training and using muscle. Because if your sleep is not there to help support and recover that, then you're kind of just your gas tank is still empty. So again, looking
Yes.
at like Christina's dials and even the car analogy of like, okay, if my sleep is poor, then maybe I dial back my workout routine and work on increase my sleep dial.
I have a great example. You're like, it'd be like going and like getting the car detailed and there's no gas in it,
Yeah. I would say
right?
go
You
get
go
the
into,
car detailed, but it still smells like throw up from last night.
yeah. No, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you're getting this car, your body, you're going to the gym, but there's no
right,
gas in the car.
right.
So it's just sitting there, right? And it's not, there's no purpose to it. So
Mhm.
you're 1000% right. I didn't work out today because I didn't
Yeah,
get sleep last night. I was exhausted this morning, and the last thing I was going to do was work out. I needed
right.
to rest. I walked, and that's what I did. So managing sleep is so important. 7 to 9 hours, I would say for women, closer to 9 if you can. And I know that's a lot to ask. And everyone is going to be different, but just like building muscle, building your sleep routine can take time.
Yes.
I'm working with another client who really struggles with sleep. And every week we're just kind of adding to our focus, right?
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think, last week we started taking her sleep. She does have to take nighttime medications that do help with sleep. They're not necessarily for sleep. So we started taking those earlier.
Mhm.
And then she started sending me her awake time and going to bed time every day. So now I can take that and say, okay, this is the difference week over week, and maybe 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is
That plays a
helpful.
difference.
And then, yeah, if I'm getting 5 more minutes of sleep once a month, right, that's an hour by the
Yeah.
end of the year. And so just like muscle and everything, it can take time. And I know it can be frustrating, especially when we're waking in the middle of the night. We can't go back to sleep. One of the best things I've heard on how to do this is, rather than thinking about, I got to go back to sleep, I got to go back to sleep, which can cause anxiety.
Mhm.
Like, I got to wake up soon. Like, oh, I'm going to be so tired. Close your eyes and say, I am relaxing. I'm focusing on relaxing. If I don't fall asleep and I'm just relaxing, that's enough.
Yes.
And it's worked for me so
That's
many
it. It's worse.
times.
Yeah, I have to say, like, for my sleep, I had to kind of really question it because if I would wake up in the middle of the night, look at my phone, be like, "Ugh, it's 1:30," or, "Ugh, it's 4:30," and, like, be frustrated by the time, and then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, okay, so if it's 1:30, I got, like, 4 more hours I can get to sleep." If it's
Mhm.
4:30, it's like, "Gosh, I'm supposed to wake up in, like, 30 minutes," and so that would rack me. So what I ended up doing is, like, oh, now again, like you said, this took time to kind of realize and put the puzzle pieces together, but my phone automatically goes, like, on sleep mode at a certain time,
Mhm.
and so I'm aware if I'm gonna look at my phone, like, "Oh, like, it's supposed to be I'm not supposed to be." And then I intentionally don't look at the time if I wake up in the middle of the night, but what I started doing too is I have a salt lamp in the room that's on a
Mhm.
timer. And so in the morning now I don't wake up by an alarm, so this might be some different for somebody else, but if I wake up and the salt lamp is not clicked on, because I have it set to, like, at this time, you can do whatever, right?
Ah,
If it's not clicked on, then I know, like, it's just not time to wake up yet, and that's okay, but I don't need to look at my phone and see what time it is. And
I like
then if
that.
the salt lamp is on, like, it because it's again, it's on a timer, so I know it usually turns on around, like, 4:50, 5 o'clock. If
Mhm.
it is on, then I know, "Okay, you're good to get up and, like,
Yeah.
start the day."
Mhm. Mark used to do that where he would get on his phone when he couldn't sleep. And I'm like,
Yeah,
dude,
stop.
no. What's interesting, on the East Coast at 8:30, the sun's still out
Ugh,
when we
I
go to
know,
bed.
I do not like that.
It sucks, man. And I wake up, I go to bed at 8:30, wake up right now, I'm waking up around 5:30
Mhm.
and the shit's up. I'm like,
Yeah,
but then during the winter time,
it's
I was
never
talking to my brother-in-law, it's going to work with the sun, it's not up yet, coming home and the sun is down.
yeah,
So
that's how
anyway,
Texas was when I lived there. It was like,
oof.
it's, like, it's still bright.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's
Yeah,
brutal. My sleep has been a challenge here for sure.
I bet.
Um, well, and just like sleep, managing stress is super
Mhm,
important. Uh, again, guys, your body doesn't understand if you are under stress. That is our like limbic, you know, um, caveman reaction of, or cavewoman reaction of, there's a dinosaur running after me, versus I'm stressed about this report at work that I have to do.
mhm,
It doesn't understand the difference. It just recognizes through its senses. And one of the senses can be introspective hearing, right? Of, I'm freaking out in my brain, right? So your senses sense your reality, that then tells your body what to do. Then you have these reactions through your nervous system to fight, flight, freeze, right? And so even when we're ruminating, I would say we're hearing that, even though it's not an external, right? It's more
mhm,
internal hearing, and our bodies still have a response, right? And increases in norepinephrine, epinephrine, and cortisol, while absolutely necessary, people shit on these hormones. Like, if you don't have these hormones, you could die. you could literally die because your dumbass is going to stand in front of a car and not get out of the way,
Yeah.
you know? And so, however, the process is the feedback comes in, we react, we assess, we come back down when the threat is gone. However, chronic stress is chronic and the threat doesn't go away. And our body's constantly pumping these hormones into our system. And that alone it's not normal, and metabolically can cause a slew of issues as well. I've talked about the progesterone or cortisol steal. If we're overproducing cortisol, our pregnenolone, which turns into progesterone, will use itself, that's not the term, to create more cortisol. So we'll see our body really focusing on the production of cortisol rather than the productions of anabolic hormones like estrogen and testosterone, which obviously can affect us. Cortisol affects your thyroid. High cortisol levels can also affect your thyroid. It has similar effects as not getting enough sleep, right? So high ghrelin, low leptin, insulin resistance comes from chronic stress because we have all this cortisol in our system. Cortisol's high, blood sugar comes out. Remember, blood sugar is in there to fight or flight, right? But I'm sitting at my desk typing this report. So what am I not doing? Not moving.
Right. And I think one thing, like, to talk about managing stress and cortisol, because I see that as like another hit flashy term too, is like reduce your cortisol levels. So reduce that. Here, take this for it. And I'm like, I put it in the same kind of category as like flashy metabolism stuff that's happening.
Yes.
Is like, yeah, but you're not looking backwards at the basics, right? So how do we get excess cortisol? Well, we're under stress, sometimes, right? And so if we're not managing the stress and then we're just taking something to mask it, we haven't really dived into what is causing it. So it's on that repeat cycle. If we're not like looking and going like, maybe I am overtraining and not eating enough and my sleep is really shitty because I feel like I have to wake up at 3 a.m. every day to get the training in. Like, those are all things that can be managed without supplemental assistance, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and I think, like, again, managing stress, it doesn't just have to be like my report, like you were saying, is due at work. It could be emotional stress. It could be stress within your relationship. It could be stress that you just feel because maybe you're really anxious all the time. And so figuring out what is the root cause, what do I need to do? Like in a relationship, sometimes stress like is good because it's a growth opportunity, but sometimes stress is stressful. Like if you're walking into your house every day and going like, okay, like here we go, I got 6 more hours until we go to bed. Like that itself is not going to be cured by like some cortisol management protocol, right? It's going to be cured by getting to the root of the relationship issues. And that's what we're talking about, like getting to the root of this metabolism that you're looking to increase. Like these are the basic things that you can do without additional cost, right? Minus a gym membership, but even we could say body weight exercises at home, like without additional supplements, like you were talking about before with Dr. Julie, without getting a new mattress or anything like that, or like getting a new phone or trying to like hack systems. It's literally like reduce the stress, either physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that comes into play here.
Yeah. Well, and when we're talking about the nervous system, right? The way that we get out or fight, flight, or freeze, and just for you guys, and I'll most likely do a mirror mastery on this of the nervous system and just explain kind of what happens in each of these reactions in the body, because there's actual physiological things that happen that I think are really important to note. But just for you to understand, the parasympathetic or the ventral vagal part of the nervous system is where we want to be. And we don't get there from a supplement, y'all. We get there from joy, being present, feeling grounded, being mindful, being open and curious to what's going on, connection. We call it like the social engagement part of our nervous system. And that mindfulness, meditation, living in your body, being present is how we can manage things like the cortisol and norepinephrine and adrenaline that we get. And that requires you to change behaviors, not take this thing. So just wanted to throw that out there, because when we are in our parasympathetic nervous system, there's so many positive things that happen, including rest. So the parasympathetic is rest and digest, right? So we have to think too, our body burns most at rest, right? And so when we're in that parasympathetic place, we're kind of, going through, we're allowing our body to work in the way that it wants to. If we're chronically stressed, we're not resting, we are, we're not in the place that our body naturally wants to be. So just wanted to throw that out there. Cool. Awesome. One thing I added to this that I haven't fully baked, so my apologies, is just paying attention to your cycle. That's more for another free way to be like, that's interesting. Like you were talking about the underlying issues.
Mm-hmm.
If your cycle is not pretty steady and you're having really intense, cramping and fatigue, PMS, things like that. It's not necessarily mean you have a metabolic damage or anything like that, but it's for women, fatigue, your cycle, obviously gaining weight in a deficit. Like these are things you want to pay attention to. And if you're doing everything we talked about here and still having a lot of issues in those areas, that would be where I say, let's get someone who we trust's opinion on this, see a physician or a functional medicine practitioner, and, allow yourself to build these routines. I'd say 3 to 6 months, assess how you feel. If we're not seeing changes in things like our cycle. And again, you guys, I just threw this in here for women. As someone who's studied hormonal health, I know how much our cycle is our kind of guide to if we're doing well. So that's why I threw it in here.
I have thoughts on it too. I think it is good that you put it in there. Yeah. So my thoughts are, I almost think of the cycle as like, what is that term? The canary in the coal mine almost, right? So, and even let's talk about managing stress, managing your exercise intensity, managing your nutrition. If you think you've got all of those things on lock and then I'm not getting my cycle, like there's something going on with your energy input output systems that's not correlating because your body's telling itself. And now this is granted, let's take everything diagnosis off the table, right? This is just in general, but your body's telling itself like, oh, there isn't enough here to produce a baby or fertility or be consistent. So therefore we're just going to shut that system down. And some women think it's great. They'll be like, it's great. I don't get a period. Like, and I hear that and I'm like, that's a huge red flag. Like, that's something that we need to work on, because now I'm thinking like, she's probably not eating enough. She's probably overtraining, or like, is there something
lots of trauma?
Yes. And so again, trauma coming from a place of stressors, like as you, like for you, for example, a place of trauma is in the car. Well, if I'm going to get in the car every day, am I able to manage this, or does it cause stress? And then if I'm always in this stress place because I drive for work or something like that, we're still going to impact the metabolism. Right. And so people say, oh, my metabolism is just slow. It's just slow. And it's like, when you start to break down what we're talking about, getting enough muscle, eating enough, using needs, so daily activities to increase kind of just how you feel overall, getting enough sleep, managing your stress, like those are, again, all things that have nothing to do with like supplements or like,
or just crazy like diet where you're I mean, like, not even diet, these protocols out there, they're nuts.
Like, and it's just, you're missing I mean, when you look at this, it's a list of what, 6 to 7 of them. It's a lot. I'm not going to deny that. Like it's a lot and it looks like a huge mountain, but these are things that you still will have to take care of no matter what diet or protocol or route you decide to go on to increase your metabolism. Like, and these are the basic ways to do it. These are the foundations. So I think, like you said, the cycle is important because it is a foundation to health. It's if say you have a baby and you don't get your period back for 2.5 years and you're running excessively, because I know someone that is doing this, and then they're wondering why, it's okay,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about that. And then they're afraid to
Yeah.
eat.
Mm-hmm. Or you have someone who comes off the pill and
Mhm.
they're having struggles, right? There may
Yes.
be something metabolically there. There's a such thing as post-pill PCOS.
Oh, is there really?
Yes. It's one of
That's
there's four types of PCOS. People don't realize that. I always ask clients when we come on a clarity call, PCOS you have? I didn't even know there was types. What?
yeah.
Yeah. They just I am up in arms around PCOS right now about
Which
providers.
yeah. I
That
heard a
put
really
it on
good
the
podcast
list.
on PCOS where they're like
Oh, send it to me.
they were talking about they need to almost change the name of PCOS, because just because you have cyst doesn't mean you have PCOS. Just because you have no cyst doesn't mean you don't have PCOS.
Right.
And so
There's four
it's a
types.
term that people have used as a blanket statement for so long
Yeah.
that it's really confusing to providers, but also more so to the general population, and that people are
Yeah,
being
I do
treated
believe only
for it.
one type is with cysts.
Yeah,
Maybe two. I'd have to look back at my notes.
right. But if you're saying polycystic ovarian syndrome, like
Correct.
people are thinking, well, I need multiple cysts on my ovaries to have PCOS, and that's not true.
No,
Yeah,
not at all.
yeah.
There are like high testosterone is one of them. Insulin resistance
We should
is another.
do a podcast on PCOS.
I put it on the list
You did? Oh,
already.
good
I
girl.
did. It's tough, and I will say the microdosing of GLP-1 has shown to reverse PCOS, which is very interesting to me.
It is.
The microdosing GLP-1 is my jam right now.
Really?
I want to try it.
You know what? I was thinking about you today because I was listening to that
Mhm.
new episode, and I was like, I
Mhm.
think Christina's going to want to try this.
I want to try it with Dr. Julie. I sent her the episode.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I personally, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through Dr. Julie's protocols because I personally think I have PCOS. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
did lose my uterus. I do have cysts. I have, my hair thins here, but I'm very like hairy in other areas.
Uh-huh.
So that's part of it. But I'm also Hispanic. So could that be it? I don't know. And so, but the thing is, and I've been reading on, I'm going to get it wrong, like gainers versus non-gainers in
Yeah.
PCOS. So you do have, there's a small amount of people who have PCOS who actually have higher muscle mass, which makes sense because they have higher testosterone.
Huh.
And then you have people who have higher fat and lower muscle. It's very interesting. It's something that honestly, I look this up all of the time. I get as much information as I possibly can. I have several clients who have PCOS, and a lot of what we're talking about here is what we focus on, especially around like lowering inflammation. So high protein diet.
Mhm.
We haven't talked about here, just, decreasing processed foods. But even for some of them, I think of one in particular, she's doing all the things right. Finally went to go see someone, and the endocrine doctor just literally told her, like, you have PCOS, you're not going to lose weight. You should go on GLP-1. Yeah. But not even like, we're going to microdose GLP-1. They wanted to like stick her with like the 2.5 milligram. Like, she's like, I'm not
Oh,
doing that. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, well, and listen, my girl, I love her to death, but she doesn't want to go gluten and dairy free. So yeah, that's one of the things someone with PCOS would do, and the way that I would do it. I don't know why I'm talking about this whole thing because we can have a whole podcast on it. So just listen.
Yeah,
I'm not
we'll get
giving away
there.
the secrets.
Yeah, because I would
However,
probably I would want to interview you about that because I'm not
Mhm.
as familiar with you as you are.
Yeah, I do a lot of reading. It's kind of this elusive diagnose, like it's
That's what they were saying in this like
Mhm.
I was like, they're like, it's just you can't
Was
say
it
it is.
Hyman or what's his face?
No, you
Huberman?
know what? No, it wasn't.
So I listened to a lady on Huberman, but it got too like technical. I think that's something I wanted to share with you guys as I'm listening to the podcast I listen to. We're not technical.
at all.
Just like, I might get a little technical when it comes to like the nervous system and, emotional processes, but we're not technical. So did you find it?
Yeah, I just sent it to you. It's from a Healthful Woman podcast, and it's from essentially last year. But yeah, it's like literally the title is a PCOS, a chronic medical condition that deserves comprehensive care. It's a complex hormonal disorder that can have a large impact on fertility and other health markers. So
love. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember that episode from over a year ago, then it was obvious. It was remarkable,
Absolutely. I'm excited. Cool. Well, again, guys, we're not looking to repair your metabolism, boost your metabolism, fix your metabolism. All you're doing is our reset. We are looking to increase your resting metabolism through very simple means so that you can, again, I say it all the time, be firing on all cylinders. You're feeling great. Your body's working the way it's supposed to. And let's be honest, through a lot of these things, you're also going to look amazing. You will have less frustration when it comes to diet and exercise. Also, I just finished my menopause specialist certification. There is a ton of research that shows that a lot of the things we're talking about also help mitigate or lessen symptoms of perimenopause and postmenopause. So if that's enough, metabolism's enough, whatever it is, this is like I won't say trifecta because there's 6 of, but it's what should we
building
call it?
blocks.
The holy grail of health.
Pyramid of health.
Yes. So awesome. Cool. Well, if you guys like this information, please give us a follow. You can follow this on our YouTube page where you can actually watch these recordings. If you're wondering why we look weird, because we are on a green screen. So look it, we're all over the place. That is the Mindset of Matter. You can also find us on Instagram at Mindset of Matter Coaching or fitbyamanda.az. We also are running our promo for $250 off one-to-one coaching. That is our freaking baby mother load / it's our best program. It is the cream of the crop. It is the shit. And I rarely discount it. So I figured, hey, y'all, if y'all are listening and you're not already working with us, this is a great opportunity to do so. Other than that, what else do I usually say here? I don't remember.
Remember what you say in the mind?
You see in the mirror. Bye.
Bye.